So Travis Scott, aka Huncho Jack, has decided to release his very anticipated record, Utopia. So it's been pretty known that Travis Scott has honestly been one of my biggest influences when it comes to making music. For those who don't know, I started my second channel, which is Jeremiah Beats, which is still the link down below. I don't upload as often, but I'm planning to, I guess, upload some beats here and there. But one of my first beats, it's pretty obvious that I was extremely influenced by Travis Scott. A lot of my beats are very like Travis Scott type, and stuff in that channel, and my earlier work as well, which is like very Travis Scott inspired with the spacey pads, with the dark, serene textures and pianos and all that stuff, inspired by Travis Scott, Metro Boom, and all of these acts. But Travis Scott really just kind of inspired me to take music more seriously. And all that came from one of the best records of the 2010s and one of the best records, if not the best record to come out in 2018, Astroworld. It is one hell of a trip. Everybody calls it already a classic. And I remember when it came out, around the same time that it came out, Sicko Mode being such a game changer, such a revolutionary song. And even 5 years later, no one has really managed to, like, I guess, have a song as insane with that many beat switches in a trap song, at least, and make it a number one hit. I think reaching the 1 billion stream mark, I think, which is freaking insane. And only Travis Scott and Drake are able to pull that, especially Travis. Aside of that, Travis obviously, has really impacted the world even before Astroworld, with Rodeo being really his debut record, being such a strong record that put him in the map, having a lot of critically acclaimed success. Also commercial-wise, since he had obviously hits like Antidote, Oh My This Side, 3500, which really cultivated the whole experimental trap psychedelic sound that you hear today in modern trap music. So coming into this record, I had an insane amount of expectations, but at the same time, my expectations were sort of like, I guess, humbled a bit, because wow, that lead single he dropped with Bad Bunny and The Weeknd, K-Pop, was honestly one of the most disappointing singles I've ever heard, period. And I sort of understand the context of it being more at the end of this record, but it still doesn't take away from how just like poor and how redundant it sounds in comparison to the other tracks that are in this album, and also just as a song in general. I really can't see myself voluntarily wanting to listen to this song again, except maybe for The Weeknd. And to be honest, his verse wasn't even that great. The funny and ridiculous thing is that, Trav apparently said in an interview that K-pop wasn't really going to be a part of this record, and it was going to be more as a loose single out there, just to build some hype and momentum for this record, just like he did with Escape Planet Mafia, which, while I wasn't like the craziest about it, it made sense why it was sort of like, associated with Utopia. I would still prefer any of those two singles than this single, because again, just adding this thing into the record again, it's like a very weird and odd hiccup, especially since as I said, it's just towards the end. It's like a very weird like stop. But anyway, all that intro aside, I really want to dive into this record. I'm extremely hyped, and man, Utopia just re-delivered. It really did. It's honestly a very fun listen, but it's also a very confusing listen, especially the first time around. I wouldn't really judge anybody for not loving this record the first listen, to be honest. It's very confusing to navigate through, because I have these sort of like Astroworld expectations. The first few songs in this record, honestly, nothing short but incredible. I mean, I absolutely adore HYAENA. How Travis Scott opens this whole like record with these very boom bap exotic drums, this very dark melody, combining these Mike Dean synths together with again some old school hip hop drums, boom bap drums in there. And honestly, man, Travis rapped an insane amount on this song, and in this record as well. There's a lot more rapping, and I haven't heard this much rapping from Travis since Rodeo, which again was 2015, and in 2 years is gonna be 10 years, which honestly insane. Again, I don't want to make like a lot of comparisons throughout, like album to album, but since this is like a direct successor to Astroworld, I kind of slightly have to. But man, I was getting a lot of vibes from Birds in a Trap Sing Big Night, especially on the second song's My Eyes, which sounds like a fully realized Birds in a Trap Sing Big Night song, and honestly a much better song than many of the songs in the record. It feels fully realized. Sure, you know, at first glance, it can feel kind of slow. It can feel like, where's this record, you know, where's this song going? You know, where's this song going? But then the second half has this insane beat switch that goes insanely hard with these big drums, these dark orchestral type of melody going on here, and Travis is flowing his ass off in here. Again, he raps a lot on this record, and I know it might seem weird because it's like, you know, I mean, Travis Scott is a rapper, you know, he raps obviously, but Astroworld being more of like a low key album on most times, and not really having that many like rap verses sprinkled through there, and doing and letting the features do a lot of the heavy back end stuff. This record feels like a fresh listen. If it feels like a fresh point of view of Travis, a fresh look at Travis's new sound and new aesthetic. Instead of putting himself in the corner and directing all of this and just doing that for the entire record, it seems that he is voluntarily putting himself as the main actor. Sorry for doing this movie metaphor, but it's like if Travis, you know, like many artists usually do when they have like these big productions and a lot of features, it's especially like for example Lil Yachty with that record that he dropped this year, Let's Start Here. He was more of like a director than the main actor, the main person here, which is kind of a flaw. But it's like he coordinated and he knew everything, how it needed to go, and he knew the people to contact to work on this record. Travis, on the other hand, not only knows that, but is also a frontman in here, especially since he opens the record with him flowing his ass off. I think in the second and third track there's a TELEKINESIS touchdown feature, which honestly is great. I would never expect TELEKINESIS to be on this record, but man, here we are. And TELEKINESIS had an amazing verse in here. He really just knew how to bring up that energy, and I love TELEKINESIS, how he brings up the energy in a lot of the tracks. And man, Travis just had a W placement on this song overall. And I also believe that Casey was involved in this record too, which I think a lot of people knew him from his Donda feature, and I believe in God Breathes on Me, or one of those songs that he had a very majestic, angelic voice. The track Modern Jam really is one of the indicators that this record is insanely inspired by Kanye West and by obviously Yeezus being such an experimental and groundbreaking record, and it still is even till this day. But the drums, how the drums are placed in this Modern Jam track, which I think was produced by Guy Miranda, or one of the members of Daft Punk, with Travis Scott, and I love the combination between the two. Honestly, I didn't know it was Daft Punk until I read the credit. I didn't even know it was one of the Daft Punk members until I read the credentials. It was honestly mind blowing and insane, and it just shows how much complexity and texture there is in this song. It really reminds me a lot of a Beyonce cut from Renaissance, which, talking about Beyonce, she's also featured on this record. The track Del Resto Echoes has a surprising Beyonce feature, which honestly she sings her ass off on this record. Honestly, it's amazing. I think it's like 4 or 5 minutes, and it's like one of the most complicated dance / trap tracks ever, to be honest. There's a lot of layers, and there's a lot of layers involved in here. James Blake, I think, sings more on the back end, almost like wrapping up this record very nicely. It has an insanely beautiful outro with these insane synths thrown in the mix and these angelic choirs that are just wrapping this up nicely. It's angelic, it's dreamy, it's dark in a way, but it's also very groovy, thanks to like Beyonce's charisma and Travis's part in the production end. Despite this song being very creative and having a lot of layers, I do feel that I get slightly like zoned out from here, since there's so much just going in here to have like this sense of claustrophobia that it's like I feel like I'm trapped in a corner, and this song is just like spouting a lot of things on top of me. It's like if it's holding me tight and I can't just like escape from here, but in a very creepy way, to put it that way. But yeah, again, there's like a lot of layers. I think too many layers at points. But it's it's one of the most experimental songs that Travis has ever worked on, period. I do feel that Travis's urge to be very experimental kind of comes with a cost, since he tries to dive more into using older samples with God's Country, which is a 2-minute trap, trap wannabe banger of, I want to say wannabe. I'm not gonna lie, the beat in here is kind of trash in my opinion. The sample is not the greatest. It sounds just grating at the ears. I think they use detune for the here. I think they use detune and vinyl noise in here, and it doesn't work, to be honest. It sounds like annoying. That saying da, 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 like that sample in Vox is honestly just it's annoying. It's very annoying, and it just ruins the entire like flow of the song in general. And Travis isn't really spitting anything that crazy, to be real. The tracks I know and Utopia Twins serve more as I guess run of the mill cookie cutter trap bops, which I personally do enjoy. And I know that many people are saying, many people enjoy as well, but are kind of saying that in comparison to a lot of these songs on this record, it's not at the same level, which I personally do agree. I feel that those songs, while they do have some great features and some great performances, it's kind of surface level. It's not like as groundbreaking as we have with Del Resto or the other songs that are bigger cuts and feel much bolder. Just feels more safe, and it feels like it's trying to satisfy, accessible for other people who don't feel comfortable with listening to the more experimental tracks. Speaking of experimental, Circus Maximus is one of the most what the fuck moments in the entire record. It has this very Yeezus inspired black skinhead drums, which at first I thought it was a sample from Black Skinhead, and Travis Travis again rapping his ass off on these drums. I'm sorry if I'm not being very descriptive with what the lyrics are saying and stuff like that, but personally I think this record, same thing what goes to Astroworld and Rodeo, is more sound heavy if anything, and it's not what he's saying is not necessarily anything like important. There are some bars in here that was pretty cool, and some that were kind of eye rolling, but for the grand majority of the part, I wanted to be focusing more on the sound, because the sound of this record is honestly just top notch. But again, coming to this track, these black skinhead drums that are marching through, these very distorted bass lines, Travis again rapping his ass off on this song, and the surprising weekend feature, which honestly makes me levitate every time I hear it. I have an update of Playboi Carti. I know that he obviously had the song with The Weeknd popular, I think was back in May or June, but that wasn't really like a whole verse that everybody wanted. We have an entire verse in here, which is honestly so damn cool. In the track Fane. It's just cool hearing Travis Scott, Playboi Carti, I think Sheck West is more at the end, just collaborate together. And the way Carti uses his voice in this song is honestly very interesting. It's more of a deeper register. At the same time, channeling his inner like a whole lot of red, but a bit more toned down, and you can kind of hear more of his quote unquote natural voice in here, and not the baby Carti voice we get to hear on his self-titled record or the Die Lit record. I even confused it with Lil Yachty, but Genius says it's Playboi Carti, and Playboi Carti posted on his Instagram that it was him. So again, it's a very surprising feature, and that thing has honestly been stuck in my head. And damn, man, just Carti, man. This is the reason why I love Carti. Carti's not afraid to experiment the way he does, even if not everybody loves it. I do think the hook can be a little bit grating at times, especially as it repeats fiend again and over and over and over. But the 808s on this track are so hard that it makes sense why it has such a simplistic hook or chorus attached to it. Like how Travis shows more that he has control over this record, complete control over this record, with the track SKITZO, as he is rapping his ass off for 6 minutes. There's a surprising thug verse, I think, in the first 2 minutes on this song. Even though I'm not the biggest fan on this verse, it's better than nothing. And Free Thug, obviously, as Travis says on the song or on the album in general. But man, he just goes through like 3 or 4 beat switches. I think attempting to go more of a sicko mode direction. But it flows very naturally as every beat gets more intense and intense. It's like for the outro that it sounds like it's more laid back. And I'm kind of disappointed that he didn't go harder in the outro, especially since it sounded like he was more at home in terms of that sample that he was rapping on. It felt very like Griselda. Well, not Griselda. It felt more like Freddie Gibbs almost-esque with the drumless beautiful sample surrounding his chops. Speaking about Travis going more into the drumless sample territory, the song Lost Forever, which has obviously been leaked, and a lot of Travis fans have heard this leak before, as one of the first leaks for Utopia, has a surprising West Side Gun feature, and it is produced by none other but The Alchemist, which is honestly a surprising production credit. And man, is this beat amazing. The first leg on this song is very chill. It's a very kind of like techno and dark. I think even darker than Alchemist's standards, to be honest. And I know that Alchemist definitely had the ears for this type of sample, and Travis kind of helped him in here to I guess add more of his qualities in this record, in his sound too. But again, like I like that the switch up to West Side's part is very natural. It doesn't feel abrupt at all. The drums in here I think feel smoother than the previous snippet for this song. The original snippet was more of like a constant loop of the same sample that was used in the beginning. But in this original version, in this new version, there's more of a drum change in here. It's more concise. It's bigger, and we have a lot of leg room for West Side Gun. And he really just raps his ass off like he usually does. He's flexing on us. He's just talking his shit, and it's just great just hearing these two worlds just merge together. Which honestly, if you were to tell me this 3 years ago or 4, I wouldn't believe you at all. The track "Love" is a very poppy, a very hype dance techno track with some dark textures and layers that you typically hear in a Travis Scott song, but it's just very fun to listen to, and there's a great it's just very fun to listen to, and it's a very brief and I would say a bit unnecessary Kid Cudi feature towards the end, which I don't think it ruins the momentum of the song. I just feel that it's just kind of weird and just thrown out there. But overall, this song is very fun to listen to. It's a very dynamic song that just changes as it goes. It reminds me a lot of the Beyonce song that he had in this record. I think that possibly the best song on this album, or one of the more experimental and lengthier tracks as well, is Telekinesis, that has a Future feature right in the intro, which just made me levitate, just like the Weeknd feature and CIRCUS Maximus. But man, Future is really on his bag in here. He isn't necessarily saying anything crazy or anything. He's flexing. He's talking about the usual drug making process that he typically talks about when he's rapping on his solo projects and features and stuff. So some relationship issues, as well as Travis, as he talks about relationship issues throughout this record and this song as well. But I think what takes the cake personally is not only the chemistry these two have together as they build up the momentum across the song, but the unexpected 2-minute SZA feature, which just kind of like wipes the song and just becomes extremely triumphant. The horns or trumpets just go into the mix when SZA sings is one of the most angelic and groundbreaking things I have heard throughout this decade. It's a very nice wrap up for this song, and it's a very great penultimate song. And if this was the outro, this would have been like possibly the best outro of this year alone. And again, not to discredit the outro, I think that the final song on this record, Till Further Notice, is a great song as well. Again, more James Blake that we're hearing throughout this song in general, and another 21 Savage feature. I think it's a great song, even though 21 Savage feature was kind of getting on my nerves. I think it's like we've heard enough 21 Savage for this record alone. We just heard him on the Metro Boomin record and a bunch of songs that he's done features for. But James Blake has this way of harmonizing and pitching his voice in different semitones to the point that it just sounds like a whole different character and person. And while Travis doesn't necessarily do that much in this song or say something that striking and important, I think that the way he just coordinates all of this and how he orchestrates this as well, it's just so beautiful and melancholic. The track Sirens is also a very bouncy track that kind of supports, songs like Love and Del Resto. But again, it has these very Yeezus-inspired experimental drums that are clashing in the mix. They're very crushy, they're very distorted and beefy and nice. It can be kind of distracting for some people who aren't adjusted to this type of Yeezus sound or don't necessarily love the Yeezus production. But if you're an enjoyer if you really love or mess with Yeezus and just love a lot of the experimental tracks from Kanye's discography, I think you're really going to enjoy this record. I'm saving one of the best songs for last. I know a lot of people are going to be like, why didn't you mention this song earlier? But Meltdown featuring Drake. And this is one of the best Drake verses I've heard in a while, if I'm being honest. This is one of the best Drake verses I've heard in a long time. It seems that he really just cares, even though he starts off the song by saying tea time in a very ASMR whispery voice, which is a little bit creepy when you're hearing it at first listen. And it's like, what the hell am I hearing right now? Is this like an anime ASMR roleplay video? But yeah, I like how it builds up the momentum and flow, and he has like this charisma and sassiness scattered around around in here, and he passes the baton to Travis as he does a lot of the heavy lifting throughout the song as it switches a beat and it becomes more chaotic and darker than usual, and it just sounds more like a Drake beat. And again, and it makes sense why this song is as great and has such a great chemistry between these two rappers, because the beats scattered around here is like, it's almost like one for Travis and one for Drake. It's not like Sicko Mode that it's like divided sections and they really meet until the end. It's more of like they're kind of throwing their verses back and forth, and there's a lot of great chemistry thrown in there. But I will have to say that one of the more eye-rolling one-liners in here is that Travis said that he's so loyal to Kanye that he voted for Ye instead of Biden, which is really doubting the politics and stuff like that. To each its own, but that statement is kind of crazy, especially since, you know, understanding how Kanye was saying the most outlandish stuff in the year that he was trying to win or run for his presidency. But again, I kind of understand that he's trying to explain his relationship connection with Kanye, since Kanye was a huge mentor, and Travis is looked upon as a prodigy of Kanye. But overall, I think this record is very tight. It's pretty consistent despite some occasional hiccups in there, especially the Bad Bunny song, which I thought was very unnecessary, especially since it's more at the end. But again, it's very tight. It has a lot of bangers and bops. Some of the transitions in here are honestly amazing. It's like you don't even notice it's going through the next song. And a lot of these songs just don't feel that predictable, aside of some lackluster 2-minute songs that don't really add anything. A lot of these lengthier cuts that, well, you may think, a thing is going for too long. It just evolves into something super beautiful and super just like drastically different from the first half. And that's what I love about Travis Scott when he makes these songs and when he makes these albums. He puts a lot of time in his craft, and that 5-year wait was definitely worth it. Well, sure, the feature list probably could have... Well, sure, he could have substituted some features for more exciting features and more exciting artists. I personally think that overall this record went really well. It went really well, and I think it's going to grow on me and more listens in the future. Honestly, I really can't see myself even liking the lows that this record has occasionally. So yeah, what am I thinking for this record? What score am I going to give it from a scale of 1 to 10? I'm feeling more of a strong 7 to a light 8. This record has some of the strongest highs of the year so far. Obviously it's not necessarily a perfect package. It's not a completely amazing package, but the highs in here are so well mixed and mastered, and it has so much charisma and flavor and texture that I think any Travis Scott fan or any trap music fan in general is going to absolutely adore the approach and method that Travis is aiming for this record. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Utopia? Did you guys love it? Did you guys hate it? Let me know in comments down below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and hit the notification bell as well so you don't miss an upload from me. And yeah, stay safe from COVID, even though I always say it, but stay safe from anything that's going to spawn soon. I'm not predicting anything, but it could. Yeah, peace out, everybody, and listen to Utopia.